but it was wondered if I would ever do a video about where I live, my local environment. I can most certainly do that. I just moved 3 months ago to a cabin in the high desert in the East Sierras, and I can most certainly talk about why I did that after being on the road for 2.5 years, and what it's like living in solitude, an hour away from the nearest health food store. It's a very different lifestyle, and I love it. It's very conducive to writing the next book, which is what I'm here to work on. So that's where I am right now, and I'll potentially consider doing a whole video on that. What's interesting is I try not to, because it's not really about me. I appreciate the interest, but I try to focus on the issues that are applicable to everyone. And where I live or what I have for breakfast is not really what's important here. It's about the message, not the messenger. And I hope that doesn't come across as cold, but as nothing more than me conveying my intention in doing this. I'm so grateful to see all of you from all over the world, from Africa to Cambridge, UK. Can you tell us something about the next book? Yes, John, it is called Faithfully Religionless, and it is, in a nutshell, when I tell people that I don't have a religion, they automatically assume that I don't believe in God, but nothing can be further from the truth. It's just that my God, perhaps the definition is not the typical bearded man in the sky. This actually ties in really well to the heated discussion that happened online this morning on Facebook. All I said was, I don't think God works in mysterious ways. I think she knows exactly what she's doing. And I put a little smiley face out of it, because it was lighthearted, and if we believe in God, and if there's nothing God isn't, then why not refer to God as a she, if we're going to be really literal about it. And so the next book, The Faithfully Religionless, will definitely be about my transition from having a religion without faith to having a whole lot of faith without religion, and really separating those things that, God, the church, religion, the Bible, and Jesus, and all of those things are completely separate. Yes, there's areas where they overlap, but it's perfectly possible and okay to have a personal relationship with God, but not with the church, or to be a churchgoer, but not necessarily be Christ-like. And the invitation, as it is in Buddhist Boot Camp, as it is going to be in the next book, as everything that I do, is to drop the label, not be so concerned with being a Christian, but to be Christ-like, or to be a Buddhist, but to be Buddha-like. And that is only done through our behavior, not what you wear around your neck, so to speak. Clive says people are typically interested in the messenger as well as the message. I'm sure most here are. I appreciate that, Clive. I'm not sure what the right medium would be for me to discuss me. I mean, the next book is a memoir, but again, the intention is the message behind the life experiences, not necessarily life experiences that don't convey some kind of deeper meaning or part of the journey. I'm not sure. Perhaps this is my challenge, my journey, to not try to separate myself so much, but to just actually honor where there's an overlap with me and my intention. Not sure. So, do you know of Sam Harris, Timber? He is giving talks about religionless faith as well. I do not. Gabe, I appreciate the feedback. I'm going to write that down. Actually, I'm going to have access to all these comments later on. One of the challenges of living out in the desert, and one of the challenges of being unplugged, so to speak, from media since 1999, is that I don't know about what's really going on out there too much, unless someone brings my attention to something like you just did, and I can go ahead and look it up. You guys serve as somewhat of a filter, so that I'm not overwhelmed and overstimulated by negativity in the world, but actually all the wonderful work that's out there in the world. And I know I'm not the only one who's talking about being faithfully religionless. I think there's a huge group of us out there, so to speak, that have stepped away from religion or the church, and we're just kind of in limbo, so to speak, not really sure where we fit in. And I think Buddhist Boot Camp is a really good place for us to fit in, or whatever we want to call it. I apologize. Some of these comments are getting buried, and most of them are being hidden by YouTube. I apologize for that. They're grayed out on your end, or they're grayed out on my end. They're probably not even visible on yours. But I'm going to go ahead and look through them as well. Oh, interesting. Christian asked, increased spirituality versus modern scientific search for truth. Science doesn't search for truth. Science searches for facts. That's actually a really important distinction that one of my that one of my professors made, is the distinction between truth and fact. Science searches for facts, things like how the world came to be, how the planets were created, or how the planet spins, how weather patterns are created. They look for facts. They never concern themselves with asking why. Why is the planet spinning? Why are we here? What is our purpose? Like, science doesn't concern itself with the why. It only concerns itself with the how. It looks for facts, not for truth. Truth is the story that we attach to the findings, and religion attempts to fill in those blanks that science cannot. And so religion tells us, their theory on why things came to be, and it goes a step beyond that. It doesn't only call it truth with a capital T, no less. It voids anybody else's theory, and that's a kind of an issue with organized religion, is that it doesn't. Most of them do not allow the possibility of multiple truths existing. And so it's not that I'm against religion. I definitely just don't think that we need it in order to be ethical. It's kind of like putting the focus on the wrong thing. So I hope that helps with your question, Christian, is that I think there's definitely a place for science and religion and spirituality and theories and all of that to coexist. We all have our opinions, and it's only ego that turns opinions into facts. And so if we stay detached and we allow data to remain data without getting emotionally attached to it, without building a story around it, then we can have a conversation with someone who believes the exact opposite of what we do and be totally okay with it, which we don't find too much in religious discussions or arguments. And I think perhaps that's the cornerstone of that religion is, in Judaism, we say Adonai hu Elohim, meaning like my God is the God. And it in and of itself implies that any other God is not God. And so there's like this built-in superiority complex rather than unity that isn't necessarily, it's definitely not God's fault or anything like that. It's the religion. Just like Buddhism changed as it traveled and it adopted different flavors from different regions that it reached. When I, in the introduction to Buddhist Boot Camp, I talk about how I felt Tibetan Buddhism kind of veered too far from the Buddha's intentions. And my own teacher said the Buddha didn't do that, Tibetan culture did. And so culturally, we infuse a lot of beliefs. And I think culturally, we take some opinions and we turn them into facts, but that it doesn't make them factual. I'm not sure I'm articulating that pretty as well as I'd like. Let me see if you responded back. I'm gonna go back. You followed up with, what is truth if the opposite of what we know is also true? Yeah, that's true, because the first principle of Buddhist Boot Camp is that the opposite of what you know is also true. And that in itself implies that truth, that there isn't one truth with a capital D. There are multiple truths. That's just, I'm not a skeptic. I don't think that the world is full of lies. On the contrary, I just believe it's full of truths. And so what's true for me is my truth. And I have to honor the fact that to someone else, somewhere else, on the exact opposite side of the world, the opposite is their truth. And I think if we approach the world from that perspective, from just, honoring everyone's truth, without fighting over it, because there's really no need, then we take a step away from ego and we honor everyone, and not just everyone and their path, but where they are on their journey. I hope that makes sense. There's a lot of questions. Please bear with me. I understand that this is from Sihad. I'm not sure of the names. If you can say your name ahead of time, that would help. Not a lot of people have, like, oh wait, higher up, there's an Amanda. I'm a designer at a place not in line with my values. Also, my boss micromanages and uses a team as a scapegoat. Any idea how to handle the situation as I transition out? Well, you're transitioning out. The most logical thing perhaps to do is just to bow out, is to thank them for the skills you've learned along the way. I think a lot of times what we are there to learn is how to say no, is to what our limits are, so to speak. And to know, you wouldn't have known that that's not your place until you went there. And so you went, you tried it out, just like any other relationship. People come together, they think it's going to work. You put in all the ingredients and you wait to see what comes up. And what it sounds like comes up for you is that you had the intention to take your skills and better the company in which you chose to work with. And after a while, you realized, actually, no, their values are not in line with mine. This is not where I want to be, and I'm too attached to I don't want to work in that environment, is what I'm hearing. And so you're transitioning out. So transition out with gratitude. Just be really grateful for the experience that you had, for the lessons that you learned, that you figured it out early on enough to bow out and go somewhere else. I mean, these are all gifts. Nothing happens to us. Everything happens for us to learn from and grow from. And it sounds like you definitely found out that not necessarily that you know where you want to be, but where you don't want to be. And that's a very valuable lesson in and of itself. How would I recommend dealing with trust issues from previous relationships? Wow. Barb, I'd be more than happy to answer that, but I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that. Give me more information, because is it you're not trusting your current partner because something your past partner has done, or what? I would just very much like, or is it just trust in general? Just draw me a better picture, if you would, Barb, and I'll be more than happy to discuss it as we go through this list. Someone said, I'm considering visiting an ashram, but I'm concerned that I might not be as far along in my learning. How do you know when it's the right time? You go there. You try it out, and if it works, then it's great. And if it doesn't, you found out. I don't think it's, especially if it's like an ashram or a monastery, I don't think it's the most judgmental place you're going to find. So people are going to be very understanding and accepting, because anyone who is there was at one point where you are. So I can't think of a better place to go to. Now, if you go there and it doesn't feel comfortable, not because of how you are accepting where you are, but maybe because not all ashrams are created equal, is all I'm going to say. And so, even monasteries, some of them are filled with a lot of, some of the Zen centers, there's a lot of drama. It's the opposite of what you would think of as a Zen center. So it's all I can say is go. You have nothing to lose by going. It's going to be an incredible experience either way. At any ashram or monastery, you're going to find people on all levels of the path, so to speak. I don't think of the world as a hierarchy. And so when you're speaking of levels, is that you've already taken people who live there and put them up high up above you. And I think that's extremely detrimental in our journey. The idea is to look at everyone at eye level. That's the idea of the bow, is to honor that the divinity in them is the same as the one in you, and it's on that level that you're connecting with them. There is no hierarchy. Now, if you get to an ashram where the hierarchy is extremely over focused and outlined, and you're going to find it everywhere, but just find what's comfortable for you. And I think that's the beauty of community, and especially the kind of community that you're seeking out is do not put people up on a pedestal. What I love that Shunryu Suzuki said is that there are no enlightened beings. There's only enlightened activity. So the people we perceive to be enlightened are people like you and I who just made enlightened activity a part of our daily lives. And so there's no level. If you're all there with the same intention, then you're good to go. George Orwell was right. I love your name, George, and I think I've seen you on these live chats before. I'm sure that's not your name, but I love it. What do Buddhist teachings say about homosexuality? There is an entire chapter dedicated to that in Buddhist Boot Camp, and I'll be more than happy to create a separate video for that. I'm going to just plant the seed at this point and explain that there is a precept about sexual responsibility. There's absolutely no indication, pro or con, homosexuality as opposed to heterosexuality or transsexuality, bisexuality, any of that. It's about sexual responsibility, and again, it boils down to intention. What I love about Buddhism is that there aren't commandments, so to speak. There are invitations, there are precepts, there are values, and as long as we uphold those values and we don't use anything as to the detriment or against something in a negative way, if love is love. I'll just leave you with that, and then I'll perhaps do a separate video specifically about what are the Buddhist teachings on homosexuality that will include the chapter from the book. I believe the chapter title is Sexual Responsibility, and it's in Buddhist Boot Camp. It's an interesting, let me see. How do you recommend explaining these ideas that you are talking about with people who think you are walking away from Christianity and looking at them? I'm not sure I understand the question. How do you recommend explaining these things while you're talking to people who believe you're walking away from Christianity? I honestly don't feel the need to explain myself. If they ask, I can tell them what I believe. If they judge, that's on them, not on me. I'm very comfortable with where I am in my life. I don't need to convince anyone of my intentions, or it's not about what I believe or what they believe. Your beliefs don't make you a better person. Your behavior does. So if anyone judges me, I hope they do so on my actions and my intentions in the world, not on what's going on up here. So yeah, I'm not really sure exactly what you mean by what your challenge is. Please, when you ask, just go ahead, tell me your personal situation, tell me what you're actually asking, and I'll be more than happy to have a conversation about that. Ooh, sorry, the list just jumped up. I appreciate your patience, guys, as I go through this. Sammy asked if I am vegan. Yes, Sammy, I've been a vegetarian since '95 and vegan for the last 8 or 9 years. And in fact, someone today on Instagram shared what my beliefs are on exactly that. They said, my choice to stop eating meat back in the 90s did not turn my meat-eating brothers into enemies, nor do I try to convert other people to my way of life by telling them that what they're doing is wrong. If people who know me are compelled to change their diet or athletic lifestyle to resemble my own in the hopes of getting similar results, that's great, but it's definitely not my job to judge anyone who doesn't. So it's just a personal choice like anything else. It's an experiment. I still make sure I get enough calcium and iron and protein, all that stuff, and I'm doing great, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing as long as it's working. So David said, hi, Timber, any suggestions beyond leading by example and turning negatives to positives for me when dealing with a judgmental or negative parent? David, a lot of parents are judgmental and negative. We can't change them. And they're great teachers because they're just one example of many people out there. There's a certain level of respect that has to be present in all relationships, especially with the parents. By no means do I suggest that we hide who we are, but just say, Mom, Dad, this is what I believe. I know what you believe. I'm not going to try to change you. I ask that you don't try to change me, and that we learn to coexist. I'd love to talk to you about what's going on with your day, how your life is going. I would like to share with you my dreams, my hopes, my intention to be healthy and happy. And if you want your son to be happy, by all means, let's discuss that. And what I'm talking about here is setting boundaries. And I think boundaries are really healthy in any relationship. And so just be really honest with them and say, this is what I have to offer you as a relationship with your son. And I hope you're willing to accept and to work on a healthy relationship. I guarantee you it's going to work out. They may not like it. You might not like it because you might not be able to. But I think setting boundaries is really important. Just when they state what they believe, let them. It doesn't in any way diminish your own values at all. They can believe whatever they do, and so can you. And it's a practice of actually practicing what you preach. You want them to accept your truth. Well, first thing to do is accepting theirs. I hope that helps. Oh, wow, these are not coming in the order because I just got back to the ashram question. Thanks for now. It can be a long, existing and fruitful talk. So thanks to Murphy. That's Christian. Yes, Christian, we can have any one of these topics can lead to a really long discussion. And I would love to be able to sit here for a few hours or go on a 12-mile hike and have these talks. But, you know, this is what we've got, and we're going to work with what we got. It's better than nothing. John says, I have some problems living in the business world, so to speak, and maintaining my practice. Being patient, grateful. Do you have some recommendations that they can coexist? Absolutely. I'm not sure why your environment is affecting who you are. I think if you believe your beliefs with conviction, it's perfectly possible to find your role in that company, in that business world, to be that beacon of light, so to speak. I don't see any problem with that. The moment that it becomes harmful to you, the moment that you're asked to do something outside of your values, so to speak, is definitely a moment to reevaluate and say, can I take my skills, my time elsewhere? I hope that helps. Hi, Timber. Fiona said, I'm 3 months into mindful training. It's working for me. Thank you. Yeah, being mindful is it's in everything. It's every moment is an opportunity to practice. And most of our problems are obviously a result of mindlessness. So mindfulness is definitely a way to bring awareness to what we have to work on. So how do I know which one to choose? I'm not sure what that question is for. And again, there's no names here, so I'm having a hard time. I'm not sure what you're referencing. Fiona is from Scotland with poor Wi-Fi connection. I appreciate you making this possible, even with that. I am sorting through the list. Thank you again for being patient with me as I do that. Sprout and Blossom, that's a great name. Question is, thank you for sharing your time and teachings. This is very encouraging. Can you please speak more on media overstimulation and balancing social media, internet usage, and disconnecting? Absolutely. Balance, again. I'll be really honest. As far as Buddhist Boot Camp's online presence is concerned, as a business page, I can pre-schedule all my posts. So what I do to not be overstimulated is I go on and I pre-schedule my posts. I normally do it 2 to 3 months in advance, and I schedule them all to go up live, and then I unplug, and then I leave it alone, and they just schedule to go on every morning at 5 a.m. or in the evening at 8, and they just do it on their own. I very much limit, and you can certainly set a timer or just cut things out as you find that they're disrupting your intention to be mindful. I can't tell you what to do. I'm saying look at what you're doing and find out what doesn't work and stop doing it. I know that sounds really simple, but it really is that easy. If you think that listening to music in the car on the way to work gets you revved up in a bad way and you show up angry, stop doing it. If you find that it's calming, then do that. You know, whatever it is, find what works for you, and it may not be what works for me. Again, that's brings me back to one of the first things we talked about today is my aversion of talking about myself, because what works for me may not work for you. And so I'm very hesitant to tell you what my daily routine is because it may not fit your lifestyle. So we have to find our own. And so first things first is find out what doesn't work and stop doing it. You know, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Then start trying to figure out what can I do to improve, but stop doing what is detrimental. I hope that makes sense. What's your point of view on atheist Buddhist practitioners? Andrea, that's a great question. And there's a wonderful book. I wonder if I'll remember the author's name. And it's called Confessions of a Buddhist Atheist. And it is one of the best books I've ever read. It's the same guy who wrote, I'm blanking out and I'm really sorry, but if you look it up, Confessions of a Buddhist Atheist, it's brilliant. Again, atheism is often misunderstood as not believing in God, but fiercely not believing in God. And I think in and of itself, that is a belief. Is to believing that there is no God is a belief in and of itself. But again, I'm not going to say too much. Confessions of a Buddhist Atheist. I recommend you look it up and read it. It's fantastic. I have, again, what is my personal point of view? I don't care what people believe. It doesn't matter to me. If you're doing good in the world, if you're not harming anyone and you're part of the solution and not part of the pollution, I don't care if you believe that your pillow is a god. It just does not matter to me if you even believe there's a God. It's completely irrelevant to the work you do in the world. I hope that helps. I was hoping you would say that. I don't know what that is. Usually I find myself having several of my Christian friends are almost confused by that phrase when I wear that t-shirt. Rob. Oh, thank you, Rob. I'm not sure what is, I'm hoping you would say that, but I'm glad that whatever I said resonated. I hope you guys understand that it's difficult for me to connect follow-up comments with previous ones. It's like getting text messages from 100 different people at once. Clive says next the Buddhist cookbook. I've gotten that recommendation many times. I think the next step, instead of doing a cookbook, because it's just not me, I might just upload some videos on a separate channel for recipes and let you go at it. I don't need to do a book. It's just too much work. So when I hear you talking about what is going into the new book, I was hoping for ideas on how to explain it. I don't understand. My context is that I have a very tough 2 years of finding Buddhist Boot Camp was incredibly helpful. I have ended up doing meditation courses, etc., and have found it all very helpful. I am glad that worked for you. I'm again not sure what your name is, but I'm quite hesitant. You'll see there's a video about meditation that I uploaded. I'm hesitant to give meditation advice, which of course worked for you, but the reason I'm hesitant to do it is because, like I said earlier, what works for one person may not work for another, and quite often when someone gives meditation advice, they're implying by doing so that there's a wrong way to do it. And so many people come to me saying, I can't meditate, I'm doing it wrong. The only reason they feel like they're doing it wrong is because someone told them there is a right way to do it. And I just don't believe that. So, just like I did with Buddhist Boot Camp, is I plant the seed, and I think the idea, the intention is not to be vague, but to empower you to do the rest of the thinking on your own. It's detrimental to tell you what to do. It's I think beneficial to look within and live in line with your own values. I'm not going to tell you what your values are. I want you to find them, define them, and then live by them. I hope that helps. It's something, same person, my faith has taken a hell of a hammering during this time, and I found our Buddhist center was more helpful than the church I've been in. And that's very possible. I wouldn't necessarily, the problem could have been the church. It could have been that church. It could have been another church would have been equally helpful. The idea is, again, just to be grateful for community, for congregation, for Sangha, whatever it is that brings you peace. It's not a competition. It's not this place is better than this one. It's this fits better right now in my life. And it may not always, but right now it's what you needed. And I'm grateful that it was there for you. So I hope that works. I'm taking into account to move out of the city into another country. How did your life change since you moved to Hawaii and the mountains? Does the location matter? John, that's a really great question, not just for you, but for a lot of people. When you consider moving, ask yourself, are you running away from something or are you running to something? And I advise you not to run away from something, but to make sure that where you're going is a place that is conducive to the type of life you want to lead. So you have to be really clear about what kind of life you want to live, and make sure the place you're going to is conducive to that. And simplify. It could be the weather. If you, like I wanted, whenever that was, 12 years ago, to play beach volleyball every single day, and I was living in Seattle, where it's impossible to do it every day because you only get maybe 2 months of summer. Hawaii made sense. It was conducive to the kind of life I wanted to lead. I wanted to be able to ride my bike around town year round. I wanted to not have a car. I wanted to be able to do everything that I love, hiking and all of that year round, and Hawaii was perfect for that. So Hawaii made sense. When I moved out here to the mountains, I needed to live in a cabin that was absolutely quiet and remote so I can focus on what I need to focus on without any interruptions, distractions, or even temptations just during this point of my life, so I can focus on what I need to focus on and then move on from there. Does that mean I can't do that somewhere else? Of course I can. It's just this place is so ideal. Is it permanent? Absolutely not. It's where I need to be right now. And so when my life changes, you got to also take into account, taking the monastic vows for me was definitely, putting forth the intention to live to be of service to others. And when you make the commitment to be of service to others, you don't get to pick and choose what that's going to look like. When you're called upon to do something, you go and do it. Whether it be giving a talk at a prison or going across the country or somewhere else, or just sitting in silence and writing or whatever it is, you answer that call without asking many questions. You just do what you're called upon to do. So ask yourself if you're running away from something or to something. That's a really important question to ask yourself. And be really clear about your intentions. Checking emails and social media is not working for me. Constantly is not working for me. I don't understand what you mean. Being in the moment works for me. Can you give me a tip for my students? They think I'm out there, quote unquote. That question is too broad, and I'm not sure I understand what you mean. I apologize. And right below that, sounds like there's another teacher. Thank you, Timber. I'm a professor of communication and social media, so I'm always trying to teach my students balance with technology. I will share a response with them as well. Absolutely. It's about balance. It's the same thing we talked about relationships. It's about boundaries. Knowing, and like anything else, anything that you're eating, anything that you're drinking, moderation, give yourself 30 minutes a day on social media or an hour a day, or make sure you use it as a form of reward, not as a form of punishment. Don't feel deprived of it, but say, hey, when I finish my homework, then I can go online and watch 20 minutes of YouTube videos or a TED Talk but whatever it is, but just make sure that you're in control. And so I think that's what it boils down to, is that you're not consumed by anything you are in control of how much social media exposure you have, that you're not sucked into anything and all of a sudden you realize a few hours have passed. Make sure you're in control and you say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm choosing to do it. Even if it is 5 hours a day of watching whatever, if that's what you set out to do, you're in control, great. But just let us not be victims of outside circumstances, because the way we do one thing is the way we do all things. It's really important to bring mindfulness into everything we do. I hope you, I'd love to join you in your class and talk to them about this, Mary. Hopefully we can make that happen. Could I do a guided meditation video sometime? No, I can't. I won't. We talked about that. Sorry, George. Do I have any thoughts of the value of chanting? For some people, chanting works great. I am a big fan of silence, so I'm not a fan of chanting. Just like going to church. I love the sermon, can't stand the singing. Some people love the singing and can just zone out on the sermon. There's no right or wrong here. It's what works for you, what works for me. I'm not a big fan of chanting. A lot of my friends are. And for me, it's just about quiet, internal. It's all about internal work. There's nothing I feel any urge to vocalize for my own sake. This is just a personal preference. That's all. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It just doesn't work for me. I'm also very much overstimulated by audio in general. I don't, I've heard medically that it's connected to the fact that I see the world very differently. I don't have peripheral vision, not side to side, and very little up and down. And from what I understand, it actually affects the way I hear, in the sense that I hear everything that's going on in the same level of volume. And so the fan that's going on here right now, my chair creaking, the wheel spinning on the computer, and my ears, it's all at the same level, and it's very overwhelming. So for me, coming out here, moving to the desert, had a lot to do with being somewhere quiet right now where I need to be. Does that mean I can't hang out in Manhattan? Absolutely no. I mean, absolutely not. I have and I can. It's just setting forth that intention and knowing my boundaries and then stepping out. So it's just an audio thing. It's just a preference, has nothing to do with the intention or the meaning behind the chanting. Mindfulness meditation is without judgment. Your direction is without judgment. And so following mindfulness meditation should be too. Okay, not sure. Definitely not a question, but I'm not sure what you mean. Regarding previous question, how would you recommend dealing with trust? Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Barb, for coming back. Let's see. How would you recommend dealing with trust issues from previous relationships? I was referring to past relationships, and it's carrying over to my current new relationship. Well, it definitely sounds like you're crucifying your current partner for something that a previous partner has done. That's not fair to them, and it's definitely not fair to you. It's definitely a situation of guilty until proven innocent, as opposed to the other way around. A trust is imperative in a relationship, as is honesty and unconditional love and respect. So, you know, the trust has, what this tells me, Barb, and I apologize for being so direct, but I think that's the intention of having this conversation, is that if the trust has nothing to do with the previous relationship or the current one, it has a lot to do with you and your own insecurities. The work you have to do is within. I would be really hesitant to even talk to your current partner about your mistrust of them, because it has nothing to do with them. And just doing the work internally to where you're okay and you're trusting in general, and you're confident in general. It has nothing to do with whether you're in a relationship or not. And it probably is what keeps you from relationships or gets in the way of a relationship. We've all been lied to and cheated on, and God would be terrible if we never got over it. You know, the fact that you're still here and you're capable of love again, that's fantastic. Leave the past in the past, and if someone lies to you again, you've survived it before, you'll survive it again. You know, I'm not quite sure what the fear is of anything really, but putting it in this context, your track record is 100%. You've survived everything that's happened to you. You're going to survive whatever you're in. And what you're in could be absolutely wonderful if you just stop questioning it so much and just enjoy it, especially if you have no reason to. And if you have a reason to mistrust the person you're with, why are you with them? And if it has nothing to do with them, remind yourself of that and ask yourself, why am I so mistrusting? And work on that, on your own confidence, because it has nothing to do with the person you're with, and it could be very detrimental to their relationship if there's no trust there. Let's see. I hope that helps. Gosh, I wish I had one-on-one with all of you, and that this was like a two-way street, more so than these texts. Again, any suggestions what Buddhist chanting my kids 10 and 12 and I can read or pray every night before I go to bed? It doesn't. I'll drop the Buddhist thing, drop the chanting, drop the read or the pray. The important thing here is gratitude. If you sit with your kids and you talk about everything you're grateful for from the day, you are giving them the greatest gift you can. And it's a practice they can take on into their morning and into their life. From that point forward, gratitude, make a gratitude list, keep a gratitude journal. A gratitude jar. A lot of times people keep a jar at home, and you and the kids can write down something wonderful that happened that day or things that you're grateful for. Write it down, share it with each other, put it in a jar, and then New Year's Eve, open up the jar, drop them out, and remind yourselves of everything that's wonderful. I've had people do a gratitude wall. What are you grateful for? And stick notes on there together. Read together a chapter to one another every night. It could be anything. The important thing is to have them feel safe to talk about whatever it is they need to talk about, to not feel like anything is too taboo or too sacred or anything of the sort, but just being able to talk to you. I mean, that's really what you're hoping to create for them is confidence and gratitude and openness and safety. And that's not going to come from chanting something. That's going to come from being open with them yourself. Sharing of yourself with them will let them know this is a safe environment for them to do the same thing as well. I hope that helps. And I hope that answers your questions. That's my bit is zoom out a little bit. I think there's so much focus and concern on things having to be Buddhist or Christian and the label and the chanting and the proper sitting and just remember the intention behind it. It's not about following we're confusing, and I've said this before, we're confusing ritual with practice. Anyone can sit there and chant, but not anyone can sit there and mean it and have that chant, that mindfulness, that awareness, that inner peace actually play out in their lives. So that's my feedback on that. I hope that helps. Barb, thank you for the response regarding trust issues. You're very welcome. And Kat also said, love the answer about trust issues. I hope that helps, and I hope it wasn't too harsh, if you would. My intention isn't to be hostile, and I don't think I am, but intention and impact. I know it's a sensitive matter. And my intention is to be radically honest, not brutally honest. The honesty doesn't have to have any hostility behind it. Gabe said, a lot of times I feel very inadequate around other guys, other young guys, for not going out, not having a girlfriend, not drinking alcohol. Am I just being insecure? Did you feel inadequate at some point? Gabe, I have not had alcohol. I've never done drugs. I don't smoke or drink or party. So I've always been different, and that's okay. And I think what gave me confidence in that is that if I'm out there, there's other people out there like me, and my self-worth, my value has absolutely nothing to do with how much I'm like other people, especially not those people, but finding just comfort in me being who I am. Have I lost friends? Have I been left out of things? Absolutely. My best friend in the whole world knew that when she was celebrating her birthday and she was going out drinking and partying, she knew not to invite me. But the next day or the previous day, she'd say, hey, for my birthday, why don't you and I go out to dinner or sit down and watch a movie or something? And I thought that was really a good way to have a balance in my life. And again, it came from me being really honest and said, this is what I'm into and this is what I'm not into. Your real friends will honor that. And the ones who don't are not really your friends. It's really, you asked if you're just being insecure. It is somewhat of an insecurity of not feeling confident enough that the decisions you're making are the right ones. I'm here to assure you that they are, and you're not alone. And it's amazing, you know, when I moved. This was a really big thing for me. When I moved from the Bay Area in California to Seattle, Washington, I didn't know anyone in Washington. And I knew I had two choices. In the Bay Area, I had hundreds of friends. And I always did what everybody else liked to do. And I never really found out who I was or what I liked to do. And so when I moved to Seattle, I knew that I had the option to either meet people, find out what they like to do, and then do that, or look within, find out what I like to do, which was a lot of hiking and whatnot and kayaking. And so I went and I did them on my own. And lo and behold, on the hiking trail, I met other people who like to do the same things that I do. And that's how you surround yourself with other people who are like-minded, or not like-minded necessarily, because you can be hiking or doing whatever it is you do like to do with someone who doesn't believe anything that you believe in. I mean, most of my friends do not. You might think that all my friends are you know, chanting and meditating Buddhists, and trust me, they're not. I would say most of my close friends never really read the book. They would never come to a Buddhist Boot Camp talk. They're not participating today. I'll tell you that right now. And that's because we connect on different things. This does not define me. This is not all I am. And the beauty of hosting so many couch surfers from all over the world and having different people stay with me is that it drops this idea that I'm only one thing, when there's really, I'm a lot of things, and not one of them defines me, and so are you. I hope that helps your question. Don't lose faith just because the other young kids are doing something and you're not. There's no recipe for all of it, for all of us. Not at all. Isn't it a fine line that separates acceptance and non-judging from ignorance and pretending? Let me see if I can wrap my mind around that question. Isn't there a fine line that separates acceptance and non-judging? So maybe a fine line that separates acceptance and non-judgment from ignorance and pretending. Not separating acceptance and non-judging, but separating acceptance and non-judging from ignorance and pretending. I don't understand. Acceptance does not imply ignorance. In fact, that's why I always encourage people to ask questions and get knowledgeable, find out the information. I don't think we can be accepting. I mean, the more information we have, the more accepting we can be. It's not about ignorance, and it's not about pretending. You sit down and you have a conversation with anyone who's done anything, a member of the KKK, and the idea of acceptance is to accept that this is their truth, this is their reality. I mean, you can go ahead and have a conversation with them. They'll explain to you why they are, what they've done to get to where they are, how they were raised, what their childhood was like, what led them to where, and you can say, I understand, like that actually makes sense, that logically follows. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to join their clan. It just means that you understand and you accept that this, because of their time, place, and circumstance, this is where they are, this is what works for them, and you honor that that's where they are on their journey. There's no judgment there at all, and has nothing to do with ignorance, especially nothing to do with pretending. Maybe I misunderstood your question, Christian, but I just don't see a fine line there at all. I think they're directly related, and yet I don't think it's pretending at all. again, I always use the example of the green sky. When someone comes and tells me the sky is green, it's not about ignorance. It's not about pretending. I just walk away from that experience knowing that to some people the sky looks green. I don't need to prove to them that it's blue. I don't even need to tell them that I think it's blue if they don't ask me. That, I don't. It's just okay. It's so much easier to just say okay, and walking away more informed than we were before. Good night, Fiona. We're going to be wrapping up here in about 5 minutes. Thank you for joining us from all the way across the world. David, one more question I'll take before we hang up for today. David said, I teach kindergarten through K through 5 students. I think it's kindergarten through 5th grade. I've introduced a 3 to 5 minute quiet meditation time to focus the kids before we start math. Do you think that's enough time to be effective? Absolutely. Man, that's a long time. 3 to 5 minutes for kids to be in quiet meditation. That's a lot. When corporations have introduced meditation to their board meetings, they just take a minute of quiet reflection before they start. 3 to 5 minutes is a long time for a kid. If you can hold them for that long, that's impressive. I'm really glad you're giving them that and giving them the intention of what to do during those 3 to 5 minutes. And I think that's something they can carry with them throughout their lives. Gabe said, thank you, Timber. You make life sound so easy. It's amazing. I think life is easy, Gabe. We just make it complicated. And that's kind of the whole point. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. My message is look at your life and look and ask yourself, how am I making my life complicated? Stop doing it. It's really simple. It's not about pointing the finger away from us. It's about looking within and going, how am I contributing to this? And then not do it anymore. It really is that simple, Gabe. Thank you for that feedback. Thank you for staying up, Kat. I appreciate that. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. It's for all of us. We're all benefit from this. That's why I really appreciate when you guys are done with the book, you give it to someone else, and you pass it on. I mean,